If you picture a world-renowned scientist, you probably imagine a clean-cut professor in a pristine lab, quietly staring through a microscope or calculating equations in isolation. Or think of someone in a crisp white coat, detached from the messiness of real life, observing human nature through cold, clinical data points. But what if I told you one of the smartest, most brilliant neurobiologists of our time, a man with a legendary bushy beard and a penchant for dry humor, spent 4 decades living among wild baboons in the East African savannah, darting hyper-aggressive alpha males at 5 in the morning to measure their stress hormones? What if the very scientist who mapped the deadly biological mechanics of chronic stress went on to challenge the foundational pillar of human civilization, arguing that free will is a complete and utter illusion, and that every action, thought, and moral choice we make is merely the inevitable outcome of biological luck. This is the story of the neurobiologist Robert Sapolsky. He isn't just a neuroscientist, he is a biological detective who proved that to understand why humans commit horrific violence or perform selfless acts of kindness, you cannot look at a single moment of kindness or violence in isolation. You have to trace the thread back through the neurochemistry, hormones, childhood development, genetics, and millions of years of evolutionary history. Now, to understand Robert Sapolsky's radical worldview, we have to look back at his roots in Brooklyn, New York. Born in 1957 to Jewish immigrant parents, young Robert was an isolated, deeply introspective kid. He spent his weekends wandering alone through the hall of African mammals at the American Museum of Natural History, mesmerized by the taxidermy of mountain gorillas and baboons. While other children were playing baseball, 12-year-old Robert was writing fan letters to his famous primatologists and teaching himself Swahili in his bedroom. He didn't just want to study animals, he wanted to live among them, convinced that the key to our understanding of human suffering lies in our evolutionary cousins. The dream became a reality when Sapolsky was just 21 years old, fresh out of Harvard with a degree in biological anthropology. He packed his bags and moved to Kenya to establish a long-term field study on a troop of wild olive baboons in the Serengeti. For 40 years, Robert Sapolsky spent his summers living in a solitary tent, learning the complex social drama of his baboon troop. To gather data, he developed a precise, risky routine, using a blowgun to shoot sleeping darts into specific baboons before they woke up, quickly drawing their blood and measuring their baseline stress hormones, specifically cortisol and adrenaline, before the stress of being darted could skew the numbers. Basically, a aha trick. What he discovered reshaped the field of endocrinology. In baboon society, social rank dictates everything. Sapolsky found that low-ranking, subordinate males who were constantly harassed by aggressive alpha males suffered from chronic high blood pressure, weakened immune systems, elevated resting cortisol levels, and reproductive dysfunction. Crucially, he noticed that baboons don't get stress ulcers because they are hunted by lions. A lion chase only lasts a few minutes. They get stress ulcers because they spend their time and their days psychologically tormenting each other over their social status. Sapolsky drew a line from the Serengeti to human society, showing how the psychological stress of social inequality and hierarchy wreaks identical havoc on human health. When he wasn't in Africa, Sapolsky was in his laboratory at Stanford University. Working as a professor of biology and neurology, he turned his attention to the brain, specifically investigating what chronic stress does to our neurons. He discovered that prolonged exposure to stress hormones literally poisons the hippocampus, the crucial brain region responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. Over time, chronic stress causes hippocampal neurons to atrophy and die, explaining why prolonged trauma and anxiety impair memory and alter personality. After this discovery, he translated these complex biological insights into the accessible best-selling book in Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. He explained why humans are unique in our ability to activate a full-blown physiological stress response simply by thinking about a bad future event. In his memoir called A Private's Memoir, he documented his chaotic, hilarious, and ultimately tragic years in Kenya, including the heartbreaking moment a meat-tainted food supply caused a tuberculosis outbreak that wiped out most of the aggressive, high-ranking males in his troop, spontaneously transforming the remaining baboon society into a peaceful, female-led culture for generations. As his career progressed, Sapolsky expanded his focus from stress to the entire spectrum of human behavior. In his masterwork, Behave, the Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst, he presented a revolutionary way to view stress and what we do, why we do. If a human pulls a trigger or offers a helping hand, Sapolsky asks, what happened 1 second before the event in the brain? Then what sensory environmental trigger happened seconds to minutes before? What hormone levels were circulating hours to days before? What neuroplastic changes occurred months to years before? What happened in the childhood or during fetal development? And finally, what genes and evolutionary forces laid the blueprint thousands to millions of years ago? When you put all those layers together, Sapolsky argues there's no empty space left for a mysterious thing called a free will. This culminated in his controversial book, his latest book as well, Determined, A Life of Science Without Free Will. Sapolsky contends that every single decision, impulse, and moral outcome is entirely determined by the biological machinery we inherited and the environment we were placed into, neither of which we choose. We are, in his words, biological machines. A person who commits a crime or achieves legendary success is simply the sum of their neurobiology and fortune. While critics argue this view destroys personal responsibility, Robert Sapolsky sees it as the ultimate foundation for radical human compassion. If free will is an illusion, then hatred, retribution, and moral elitism makes no logical sense. We wouldn't punish a car with broken brakes out of vengeance. We fix the brakes or keep the car from harming others. Sapolsky argues that understanding our biological determinism requires us to dismantle cruel penal systems, reject the arrogance of meritocracy, and treat human failings with empathy, treatment, and structural reform. Now that he is retired from his field research in Kenya, Robert Sapolsky stands as one of the most compelling public intellectuals of our era. His life's work challenges us to step out of our moral comfort zone. He reminds us that beneath our beliefs, our laws, and our egos lies an ancient, intricate biological tapestry, and that the true empathy begins when we stop judging human behavior at face value and start asking the deeper question: how did biology and environment conspire to create this movement? Robert Sapolsky, though he is not as famous as Einstein or Freud or Jung, Sapolsky has known more about the mind than most of us ever have. He's looked at the mind from a perspective that no one else has tried. Although William James considered himself to be an evolutionary psychologist, Sapolsky took it to a whole new level by intricately examining the evolutionary aspects on the biological and neurological perspective. Now, Robert Sapolsky is a part-time teacher at Stanford and is working on keeping family time to himself. His work will be remembered, and his questions and his curiosity will be what is left.